going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of Coordinating Chaos, and let me tell you what, your boy is going to the Super Bowl. Let's freaking go, guys. What an absolute incredible weekend of championship football. AFC, NFC, both games were insane. Obviously, you had the first game, and we're going to get right into that. Eagles versus 49ers. Obviously, I was stressed out to the max. This game, the game script, just the things that happened in this game was just absolutely wild. You had the fact that obviously the Eagles knocked out both of the, starting quarterbacks or just quarterbacks that were actively on the roster. The first one obviously being Brock Purdy, and obviously everybody knows the story of him and just the winning streak the 49ers have gone on in order to get to this point today, or I guess yesterday I should say. And the Eagles early on in the game get pressure on him. Hassan Reddick comes around the edge and hits the ball, or hits his arm as he's trying to throw the ball, causing a fumble and just torquing his elbow in a very bad position. Probably tore some ligaments in his elbow, honestly, because he had to be removed from the game for a while, and then they had no choice but to go back to him eventually because the Eagles knocked out Josh Johnson, their I guess fourth string at that point quarterback in the game. Because Ndamukong Suh came in on a pressure and kind of like hit him, and he fell to the turf and hit his head on the turf, and he got knocked out with a concussion. So they had to go back to Brock Purdy, who literally couldn't throw the ball for more than 10 yards, is what he said after the game. So from the jump, really, the game looked like it was going to be very good if Brock Purdy could have stayed in there. I still think, based on the way the game script went and everything with the Eagles were just the better team, the more dominant team. The Eagles really just were able to run the ball down for the 49ers' throat. They had no answer for the run game. Just the offensive line of the Eagles is just so dominant right now. They're just moving people out of the way. And Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, they're all getting it done right now. And then off of that, you have, the potential of Jalen Hurts keeping the ball on an RPO. It's a lot to deal with for a defense, especially one that was actually the number one defense in all of football this year in the 49ers, and they still couldn't stop it. They did a very good job in coverage. Hurts didn't really have many places to go with the ball. He was having to just kind of sit around in the pocket for a while, and then he got, kind of a little bit hesitant, so he wanted to move out of the pocket at times because the coverage was so good, and the line was getting a little bit of push on those passing downs. And Hurts did miss a couple receivers on some go balls that were pretty much open. He overthrew A.J. Brown on one that definitely would have been a touchdown, it seemed like. So I think he was just a little bit too juiced up for the game. I mean, it's obviously the NFC Championship game, so you're going to have those emotions and whatnot. And I think he was just a little bit too ready to go, and he just kept overthrowing people on some of those bombs that were open. I think potentially because he has this playoff experience now, he might be able to calm down. Even though obviously it's going to be the biggest stage in the world at the Super Bowl in Arizona. Hopefully he'll be able to hit those, but you want to get some of those out of the way. Some of those fluky stuff. He's been hitting those bombs all season long, so it's not something that I don't think I'm super concerned about long term. But you want to get some of those things out of the way in this round where it didn't matter as much because the Eagles were just dominating on the ground no matter what. So just incredible game from the Eagles offense. Obviously the 49ers did a pretty good job. They did as well as they could have, really, based on the fact that their offense they were hamstrung, considering they essentially didn't even have a QB at one point. So 49ers it just wasn't their year. Kyle Shanahan has every excuse in the book, honestly, after, multiple years now where he's having to go to backup after backup after backup at QB, and it just keeps coming back to bite him in the rear. I don't know what he did karma-wise or whatever, but man, he just has the worst luck with quarterbacks, especially going in towards the playoffs. So, man, I feel bad for Kyle Shanahan and that 49ers team, but they, the fan base, the team, they were talking smack throughout the week, and then they ran into an absolute buzzsaw when it comes to at least running the football in this game. And the Eagles won pretty handily, obviously 31-7. I think the score now for the Eagles and their opponents is they've scored 69 and they've let up 14, so that's a heck of a point differential in a playoff run. So Eagles look good, man. And like I said, me and the wife will be in Arizona for the Super Bowl. So this is going to be absolutely like a blast. We're going to be, at the game. We're not just going to be in Arizona. We're going to be at the game. lower level end zone. I'm going to get to see all of the plays developing. It's going to be incredible. But let me go on to the next game. That's pretty much it for the Eagles game. Unfortunately, it ended up being a little bit boring because of the fact of the QB factor there with the 49ers and the Eagles knocking all their quarterbacks out, essentially. But yeah, I mean, also shout out to the Eagles defense, man. They played their tail off, man. Hassan Reddick being snubbed for Defensive Player of the Year, I think that put a giant chip on his shoulder, and he wanted to show, the national media and every fan that was watching that football game that he is the truth, and he should have been on that ballot at the very least. Did not even make it on there. So he's showing out as he should, and he's on essentially a discount for the Eagles, man. They got him at $15 million a year. He should probably be getting like 30 based on the stuff he was doing this year. He has I think over 18 sacks now on the season, including playoffs, dude. Just an incredible season by him. So, but yeah, the defense for the Eagles, smothering. We'll see how they can operate against a Patrick Mahomes. We'll get to that stuff a little bit later in the preview. But yeah, let's go on to the Kansas City versus Bengals game. This game was an absolute classic. Knockdown, drag out type of football game. The Bengals played tough in this one, even though their O-line was getting absolutely blasted by the Kansas City defensive front. Chris Jones was making his presence known. Frank Clark also. They got some pretty good players up front in Kansas City, and that was like the pivotal point. I bet on the Bengals to win this game based on the fact that Pat Mahomes was going to be potentially limited in this one. And yeah, he was a little bit limited, but not as much as everybody anticipated he would be. And that was pretty much what changed the game there, obviously. And obviously my contention point and why I think Kansas City could end up winning that football game was the fact that, in Buffalo, their defensive front, their pass rush is just not very good up in Buffalo right now. They've drafted a lot of people in the first round. None of them have really shown through to be, some real blue chip players. So that's unfortunate for the Bills, but that's just the reality they were in, and that's the reality that the Bengals were in Buffalo. And when Buffalo couldn't get any pressure, it was just Joe Burrow, making things happen with his playmakers, and that was the end of it for the Bills. In this matchup, like I said, the contention point was Kansas City's defensive front is way better than the Bills' defensive front, and they showed it on Sunday. I mean, they were getting pressure. Joe Burrow was having to put his Superman cape on and just get things done. He was running for first downs, when it mattered most and big pivotal, parts of the game. He was making unbelievable throws. That throw in the back left of the corner of the end zone to Hayden Hurst, it was not completed for a touchdown, but man, that was a crazy throw. Then he had, obviously, the T. Higgins touchdown. All these were like in double coverage, too. It was incredible. T. Higgins just goes up, mosses two dudes for a touchdown. You had the Jamar Chase fourth down play where he's double covered down the middle of the field, kind of throws like a midfield back shoulder fade, and they complete that because Jamar Chase is just a freak, and Joe Burrow threw an absolutely perfect football. So really, Joe Burrow and that offense did almost all they could to just keep up in this game, considering how much pressure that Joe Burrow had in his face all game long. And then obviously on the other side of the ball, Mahomes on a limited ankle, he looked okay in the first half. Then I think he was trying to do a little bit too much in the second half and kind of tweaked it again because you saw him limping a little bit more in that second half. But man, he was just making plays, man. It's just Patrick Mahomes. He is magical. He's going to get it done. The dude was making throws on 1 foot. I mean, there's nothing really else you can say about it. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't care what anybody says. He is, for sure. And so he just got the job done. Obviously the unfortunate play at the very end of this game was obviously the fact that, I can't remember his name. Number 59 for the Bengals, like Osai, I think is his last name. He kind of pushes Pat Mahomes out of bounds as he was, scrambling to try to get a first down there at the very end of the game to try to get into field goal position for Harrison Butker to kick a game-winning field goal. Essentially, it was tied up 20-20 there, and he gets the unnecessary roughness penalty that moves him up 15 yards, makes like a 45-yarder for the game winner. Obviously, if he doesn't get that penalty there, it ends up being more of like a 60-yarder. So That was a very pivotal moment in the game. Very unfortunate for him. His teammates were dogging him after the game, which is super unfortunate. At least one of them was. I won't say his teammates plural, because most of them were actually at the locker with him, having to take questions with him and just making sure that people weren't being, just an a-hole to him essentially. Because that's just a terrible feeling to essentially feel like you destroyed the chances of your football team to win in that position. So. But yeah, so that made, obviously kick that, is for Harrison Butker. He has the leg to make the 60-yarder, so it's not like he would have necessarily for sure missed it. But the difficulty level between a 60-yarder and a 45-yarder is pretty massive in the NFL. So yeah, just an unfortunate end to that. I was really hoping that thing was going to go to overtime, because that would have been an instant classic. We would have got the first look at, obviously the new rules where each team gets their own possession because of, Josh Allen and the Bills and them getting that rule changed after the fact that they lost after that, 13-second magical, run or series by the Chiefs last year in the divisional round. So, hey, I'm glad that this is, at the end of the day, I was rooting for the Bengals to end up winning that game, mostly because if you look at it from an Eagles fan perspective, the Bengals O-line didn't look good. Eagles defensive line, very good. I like that matchup. It just basically really, that was it. I think other than that, there's not that many, it's just a coin toss there. It really is, because it's Joe Burrow and the Bengals and all their weapons and a good defensive head coach and good run defense. And then you have on the other side, Patrick Mahomes, obviously just magical. The defense on Kansas City is not so hot, but Steve Spagnuolo knows how to blitz. He knows how to heat quarterbacks up on the opposing team. And then they still have weapons. They have Travis Kelce on the offensive side for Kansas City, and they have one of the best head coaches in the history of the game in Andy Reid. So, like I said, it's a coin toss for who an Eagles fan would prefer to have, playing against them in the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, for me, what I came down on it was just the fact that if the Eagles win this Super Bowl, if they win this game against Kansas City, they will have earned the Super Bowl. Because, obviously a lot of people are saying, the NFC was weak this year, and it was, to be honest. It just wasn't a great crop of teams. The NFC just doesn't have the greatest crop of quarterbacks to lead some of these teams as well. And, the path so far has been Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy / Josh Johnson / Christian McCaffrey, because everybody was in and out of that lineup in the NFC Championship game. But that's exactly why it was so important for the Eagles to get that 1 seed. They had home field advantage. They just needed 2 wins. And they got, the draw, the luck of the draw of those 2 teams right there, and it ended up being something in their favor. And so the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl, which you got to give them credit for. Not every team is going to do exactly what they did, even if they did get the 1 seed. So the Eagles deserve credit. But going into the Super Bowl, if they beat Patrick Mahomes, which I think obviously, and a lot of people would agree with me, is the greatest quarterback in the NFL right this second. Andy Reid, you beat him. He is one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL. You're going to earn it at the end of the day. If you beat those 2 players, it is what it is. The Eagles will have earned it. And I personally, as a guy who will be live at the football game, it's going to be a bucket list type thing for me. Obviously, going to the Super Bowl is going to be an experience for a lifetime. And to see one of my favorite players, like Patrick Mahomes, play in a Super Bowl live against my favorite team, you can't ask for a better matchup. So I'm honestly glad it worked out the way it did, because I like Joe Burrow, I really do, but I would have, obviously playing against Joe Burrow, I'm more of a let's just beat them, please. That's it. But honestly, at the end of the day, if the Eagles end up losing to Kansas City, I'm good with that, because you're going against the best of the best. And if the Eagles win, you have beaten the best of the best. And that will be the second time in 5 years that that's happened, where, obviously in 2017 when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, then, we were watching that game, and the first game that day, I should say, the AFC Championship game, where it was the Jags versus the Patriots. You're watching that game, the Jags are up early, and you're like, man, this would be a great draw for the Eagles to get the Jags in the championship, or in the Super Bowl. But then at the end of the day, obviously the Patriots ended up winning. You're like, you know what? It would be so much more satisfying for the Eagles to go ahead and beat the Patriots and Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. And it's exactly what happened. Like, it was the most satisfying win because you beat Brady and Belichick in their prime still. And people, you might argue, well, they were kind of at the end of their prime. The next year, they still won another Super Bowl. So I don't want to hear any kind of crap about that because the Eagles beat prime Brady and Belichick in the Super Bowl. You don't get that you get that once in a lifetime. And we're about to get another opportunity here in this game to do the same thing again, where the Eagles have a chance to beat the best of the best coach, the best quarterback combination in the NFL. So I'm really looking forward to this thing. It's going to be incredible. Obviously, we're going to look here at, this is like the gambling preview and prediction here. Obviously, we got the Eagles. Right now it's sitting at -2 over the Chiefs. So it's 2-point spread in the Eagles' favor right now. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. This might be my heart. This might be my head. I don't know. I got the Birds. Birds are going to win it. I got a weird feeling. This is just a magical season once again, just like it was 5 years ago. Obviously, the Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes it's a great football team over there. But I don't think they've seen anything like the Eagles all season. I don't know if they can stop the rush attack of the Eagles. I don't know if their O-line can block up the Eagles' defensive line. And then, obviously the coverage on the back end with Darius Slay, James Bradbury, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Avonte Mack. Dude, we have players everywhere. Yeah, I know Kansas City has Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But I think we can figure out ways to kind of maybe we let Travis Kelce do a lot of work and then just shut down everybody else because their receiving core is not that great. They have some playmakers. They have some very good players over there. But it's nothing I don't think the Eagles' defensive line / secondary can handle at all. So I like the Eagles in this matchup. I got the Birds winning a Super Bowl. I'm going to be there live. If I see that live, I might straight up cry in a stadium full of hundreds of thousands of people or whatever it may be at that point in time. But it is what it is, man. This is going to be an incredible run that the Eagles have been on. If they can finish this thing off, it'll be wild. But once again, like I said, man, if the Eagles end up losing this one, it is what it is. They lost to the best quarterback coaching duo in the NFL, and so you can't be but so mad at that. But it would be absolutely the cherry on top if the Eagles come out on top this season. That would be wild. Jalen Hurts hopefully would some of that disrespect would fall to the wayside. He has played admirably all season. Obviously, he's been playing very well. Did not have to do much in this game at all. Had 121 yards. It's not like he had to throw the ball a whole lot because the rush attack was just absolutely going to town on the 49ers defense. So, but hopefully this might be a Jalen Hurts game. And if Jalen Hurts wins it, Super Bowl MVP, that would be just another feather in his cap. Another feather in Eagles fans' caps. If, obviously, like I said, the Eagles can pull this thing off where they've beat and they've earned their right to win this Super Bowl against the best of the best competition, which I think it is. I mean, you get the 1 seed versus the 1 seed. You can't ask for a better matchup in the NFL in the Super Bowl than this one that we're getting. It's going to be super entertaining. It's going to be an absolute crazy chess match. You have the storyline of Andy Reid being the former Eagles head coach for 14 plus years. I grew up loving Andy Reid, still love him to death. Big Red is the man. But in this one, man, I hope he goes back to some of those ways where, some of his clock management becomes a little bit questionable. Some of his, play calling can end up being a little bit conservative when it comes down to it in these big games. Sometimes Pat Mahomes can delete some of that, out of the ether. But you never know what can happen. I mean, this is literally the ultimate, just get to the game. Any given Sunday, anybody can win. I think this is going to be an incredible game, man, and I can't wait. That's pretty much it for the podcast. I'm probably not going to do one next week. I will be doing a lot of social media stuff going into these next 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. Obviously, like I said, I'll be at the Super Bowl. I'm going to try to, throw out some content around that as well. So just look out for, stuff on social medias, on the YouTube Shorts. I'm going to have a lot of stuff coming out on that. But I probably won't have another actual podcast until after the Super Bowl to see, what the reaction to that would be. So I will talk to you guys later. Like I said, stay tuned for all the social media stuff, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram. I'll have it all posted on there. Obviously subscribe to our YouTube. Please tell your friends about us. follow all the Twitter, the Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff, please. That would be very helpful to keep growing this channel. It's been a blast all season. I appreciate everybody that has tuned in this season, and we will talk to you later. Once again, Weston, appreciate you editing this bad boy, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. See ya.